What's up, everybody? Alan Styles here, Sacktown Sports, of course, and it finally happened. It finally happened. The Sacramento Kings have traded De'Aaron Fox to the San Antonio Spurs. We're still waiting to figure out if there are any other pieces to the puzzle that actually just dropped. So the full trade. Spurs get De'Aaron Fox, Jordan McLaughlin. The Kings get Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, 2025 Charlotte, 2025 San Antonio, 2031 Minnesota, 3 second-round picks as well. And the Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and Kevin Huerter is finally no longer a Sacramento King. A lot of Kings fans had been wanting Kevin Huerter to make his departure, and now he's out. So when I look at how this all broke down, and we kept hearing, back and forths on what the Kings were going to get, I was told on Friday that the Kings were basically looking to get a playmaker and a wing, right? So essentially, they were trying to find somebody to replace De'Aaron, and on top of that, somebody that could do what De'Aaron was doing, or what the wing had been missing, right? So they were looking for 2 pieces. They didn't get the 2 pieces. This is exactly why I said, hey, there are kind of 2 directions they can go in. They can go in the direction of, okay, we're going to stick to our guns, try to get the 2 pieces, or we're going to go ahead and go on a pick focused return and get at least one of those things back. And that's basically what they got back for De'Aaron Fox. So again, if you're just now joining us, number one, thank you for joining us. Alan Styles here. I'm on 10 a.m., 2 p.m. You know what it is on Sacktown Sports, the full trade. And I'll have to look back because a lot of people are saying they didn't get that much back, but you got back Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko, who I got to be honest, not that familiar with his game. 3 first-round picks, 2025 Charlotte, 2027 San Antonio, 2031 Minnesota. 3 second-round picks from Chicago, Denver, and they got one of their own back. And then, of course, the Bulls get Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter. So I have to double check everything, but I'm kind of trying to figure out why everybody is saying that the Kings didn't get a lot back. There was a space that I was in earlier, and they were saying they claimed that they had the information and that they said, oh, Kings fans aren't going to be happy with this. But when I look at what could have happened, again, all first rounders aren't created equal, but they still got 3 first rounders back and Zach LaVine, who's been playing really well. Now, the one thing about Zach LaVine playing really well is that's a guy who you wonder about health, and you wonder about, okay, some of these guys have been playing really well on teams with no expectations. But I'm going to be honest with you. The Kings now are a version of that. Nobody is going to have the Kings getting to the Western Conference Finals or getting to the finals, anything like that. Zach LaVine can kind of come out here and cook again or continue to cook, because that's essentially what he's been doing on the Bulls. So I don't necessarily, at first glance, I don't think it's a terrible move, right? I don't think it's a terrible move based on where this thing went. Now, how the Kings got here, that is probably a different conversation, right? Did this have to happen the way that it happened? Probably not. But as far as the Kings getting fleeced, I mean, look, maybe this helps. Maybe this helps because of what happened yesterday with Luka and Anthony Davis. But it feels like a lot of people are going to say, hey, could be worse. Could be worse. You could be the Mavericks right now. And knowing the Kings, the way I know the Kings, the way a lot of us know the Kings, this is probably why they decided to make that move when they decided to make that move, right? So any deal today is going to look better than the deal that happened last night. So the Kings aren't stupid. That's number one. Number two, we watched them against the 76ers. We watched them against the Thunder last night, and it was terrible. It was terrible. So they could not continue to play like this, right? They could not continue to basically be zombies throughout the whole thing. And really what happened after the game with Jason Anderson of the Sacramento Bee, he put out an article, and it might have been before the game or after the game, but either way, the vibes were just awful. Right. And I made a joke about the Kings social media team trying to still have fun. Well, what putting out videos. What cereal do you put in first? This, that, all these things. They tried, man. But the whole thing was completely cooked. And this is exactly why the Kings had to make a move. So the leverage conversation is the leverage conversation. But on top of all of that, you did find a way to move De'Aaron Fox and get something in return. And you got first round picks back, right? We'll go in, we'll take a deep dive into the first and second round picks when we have more time. But you moved on from De'Aaron Fox. To me, the market was already saying some things about De'Aaron Fox. And I'm not going to sit here and dance on De'Aaron Fox's grave now that he's gone. But there were a lot of people out there, a lot of teams out there that they're not sure. If the Mavericks weren't sure about paying Luka the max, a lot of teams maybe weren't sure about paying De'Aaron Fox the max. I talked to sources from the Magic, right? They didn't think that De'Aaron Fox was worth the max because they already have a playmaker, and De'Aaron can't really shoot 32% from three this season. So it's not that De'Aaron isn't a really, really, really good player. I think it just really depends on what exactly you felt like you were going to be able to get. And I don't know, maybe I'm completely missing something, because a lot of people in the comments are sitting here and saying this is a disaster. Honestly, when people were talking before the whole thing broke, I thought maybe it's just me, but I thought it was going to be way worse. So maybe I'm completely missing something, but I thought it was way worse. Bop and run on the chat. I'm done with Vivek. I'm confused. Let me ask the question here. Everybody that's upset with the move, right? Is it because you lost De'Aaron, because of what you got in return? And based on what you got in return, is it because of Zach LaVine's? Is it Zach LaVine? Is it because of the player that you got back? Because if you get this Zach LaVine the next 3 years, that's not a bad deal, right? I don't necessarily know how Zach LaVine and Malik Monk are going to work out together, but I think that you could definitely do worse. You could definitely do worse. That's how I'm looking at this. So I think at the same time, you can't be done either. And maybe you take some of those first round picks and things that you have and try to still go get, as I reported on Friday, still go get the John Collins or whoever it is and move on from there and see what happens. Okay, I have some numbers to throw out at you, and I talked about this a little bit on the show because Malik Monk is 26 years old. And I know someone's, don't do it, Alan, but I'm going to do it. Malik Monk, 26 years old, all right? Malik Monk averaging, 17 points a game. Hang with me here. Hang with me. Jalen Brunson, when he got moved from the Mavericks, or when he left the Mavericks, 26 years old, okay, was averaging about 16 points. He moves on to the Knicks. In my opinion, the Knicks, they weren't really sure what they were going to get with Jalen Brunson. He ends up being Jalen Brunson. I'm not saying that Malik Monk is going to be Jalen Brunson. What I'm saying is that you were put in a tough situation, and and some of it is on you, but based on the situation that you were put in, you had a decision to make, right? And I feel like there were worse decisions that could have been made. That's all. There were worse decisions that could have been made. I'm not sitting here saying it was perfect at all, but there are worse decisions and worse situations that the Kings could have been in based on this stuff getting leaked, based on working with Clutch, based on a lot of different things. So in my opinion, especially as far as the Kings are concerned, this could have ended up in a much worse way. Yeah, I mean, and Donald Wilkerson on the chat is chiming in. Spurs gave up no core players. I get it. That's probably the biggest L. The biggest L is that the Spurs basically adding that third team in essentially got the Spurs off scot-free. That's probably the biggest issue. And if the Spurs become a juggernaut for the rest of the remaining decade or whatever you want to call it, sure, we can go back to that. But I'm looking here, I'm just double checking. So the Spurs, the Spurs gave up Zach Collins and Trey Jones, pretty much, and some picks. And they gave up their 2027 pick, and they gave up their 2025 pick that they got initially from the Bulls. So they did not give up a lot at all. They got to keep Stephon Castle. That's the biggest thing that I think people are upset about. The 3 first-round picks, I think, are good. I think everybody wanted one young talent, but the Devin Vassell's of the world, maybe that would they made sure that that Stephon Castle was not going anywhere. I haven't seen that type of propaganda in a very long time. They were very sure that Stephon Castle was not going to move. So to me, that's just good on them, good marketing, things like that. So they were not going to allow the Kings or anybody else to get one Stephon Castle. And not getting Sohan, and I guess that's the question too, based on what the Spurs gave up, the Kings couldn't hold strong to maybe get a Sohan. You realize Sohan is, I believe he's 20, is he 21 or 23 years old? That dude is young. He feels like he's been in the league for a very long time. I'm pretty sure Sohan is 21 years old. He's 21. So to me, at 6'8", a power forward wing who's kind of a do-it-all player at this age, if I were the Kings, I maybe, and he can play in the league. That's the thing about these picks. So much can happen. We're still going to find out about the protections. That's the one thing I would have moved on from I would have maybe given up a pick or two if I'm the Kings and say, just give us Sohan. And I'm not really that high on Sohan, but being 21 years old, I mean, you can do a couple of different things. So, and see where that goes. That's still really young. So it's nuts, man. It's nuts. It's crazy because as I'm reading these comments while we're doing the show, and thank you for hopping on the stream. Thank you, everybody on TikTok as well. As we're doing this stream, a lot of people are saying that the Spurs got worse. Or not the Spurs got worse, but the Spurs gave up a lot. A lot of people are saying that the Kings could have got back more, whatever the case may be. But ultimately, I think the biggest L in this is that the Spurs still have their future. The Spurs still have Stephon Castle. The Spurs and this dude, he better be a Hall of Famer the way that he was talked about. So the Spurs still have Stephon Castle. The Spurs still have Devin Vassell. The Spurs still have Jeremy Sohan. Those 3 dudes that the Kings thought, or at least Kings fans thought, that they would at least get one of them. The Spurs got away without giving up any of them. So De'Aaron Fox now goes to San Antonio. Right. And someone, Chris, hopping in. Yeah. The Kevin Huerter's gone as well. So that finally happened. But, you're talking about a team in the Spurs who they can still, here's the craziest part. It's not about Stephon Castle actually being, and this is the thing about the untouchable term. It's not about Stephon Castle being untouchable, because this is the same thing with other pieces. This is the same thing with Devin Carter and Cam Johnson. It's not that Stephon Castle is untouchable, right? It's that Stephon Castle is untouchable in a De'Aaron Fox deal. If somebody else was available, then, and yeah, Donald, you're right. They kept Keldon Johnson too. They kept everybody. If somebody else was available who might be Luka Doncic, right? If handle that in a better way, the Mavs did, I guarantee you Stephon Castle is not untouchable, right? And that's not a disrespect to De'Aaron Fox. That's just the reality of the situation, that they weren't going to go ahead and move Stephon Castle for De'Aaron Fox. That's what it was. So the fact that they keep these dudes, it's not necessarily that they're going to move forward with these young guns. It's that they still have these young guns where that they can now use them in other deals. That's the whole situation. So that's how the Spurs won this. They can go into the offseason and they can go after whoever they'll have money because all these dudes are still on early contracts. So they can add players. I believe Chris Paul's expiring. They can add players. They can keep who they want to keep. And they can still trade based on the value that they have now given to these players because they didn't even move him in a De'Aaron Fox deal, right? So the Spurs, because of that, won the trade. This is no disrespect to De'Aaron Fox, but the Spurs almost won the Spurs more so won the trade because of what they got to keep more so than what they gave up. And that's no disrespect to De'Aaron Fox. But the fact that they got to keep everyone and add a De'Aaron Fox, who I think is a star, not a superstar, I think a tier 2, right? Top 30 player, between 25 and 35. That's where I'd put De'Aaron Fox. So you get to add a guy like that, and you didn't have to give up that much. Here's the other. The fact that this Luka thing happened, the Kings front office, they had a decision to make. They had a decision to make in the court of public opinion and in the court of their organization. Because with the Luka thing happening, they knew that anything they did would not look that bad, right? So and again, before the Luka thing happened, the Kings looked like trash. They were sleepwalking. They could not continue this. And I know February 5th, when they come back to Sacramento, they did not want that to happen. They didn't want to deal with the situation where they're getting booed, or I honestly almost said that De'Aaron should sit. After I read the Jason Anderson article, I said that they might need to think about sitting De'Aaron Fox these next 2 games and just preparing for life after him. We don't have to worry about that now. But they had a decision. We make a move now where the market might be a little bit off because of Luka and because of what Luka didn't go for, right? Now, I think some people are sleeping on Anthony Davis, but that's a different conversation for a different day. So because of that, they said, we can strike now. We might lose a little bit of value because of the Luka thing, but in the court of public opinion, it probably won't look as bad as it maybe would have before that. Okay? So, and Johnny Ortiz is asking, it's a great question, Johnny. What happened? What did the article say? It's from Jason Anderson, my guy who writes for the Sacramento Bee. So Jason Anderson was in Oklahoma City, and he spoke to the players, and basically Trey Lyles said that the vibes were off. Trey Lyles admitted that the vibes were off, and Malik Monk said some of it is the end of a road trip, which I don't think it's that. He also did say, though, that some of it was also the trade stuff, right? De'Aaron said, hey, same old De'Aaron, it's part of the business, but, we understand that that's kind of part of it. So that's mostly what Jason said. Jason also said, here was the last bit of it. Jason also said that when De'Aaron left the locker room and the media members that he was talking to or left the area where they were, it was a very long goodbye. I think that once they got embarrassed and once they got their doors blown off in Oklahoma City, everybody knew that they couldn't continue. They could not continue the same way. Let's pull up some Zach LaVine information. A lot of people are asking if you're just hopping into the chat. Thank you for joining us. Let's pull up some Zach LaVine information as some people are curious about his contract. Alan Stiles here. Sacktown Sports. We'll be on 10 a.m., 2 p.m., but I had to hop on the live. Let's pull up Zach LaVine. Because look, you could pull up Zach LaVine's stats and feel better, or you could pull up Zach LaVine's contract and possibly feel worse. There's a couple ways to do this. So we're gonna do both, right? And the reality is, let's go here. And we'll dive into what De'Aaron was eventually going to be owed, right? I don't think he was going to make All NBA, and I think De'Aaron knew that. And I think the timing here kind of admits that he knew that. But all this stuff will eventually come out. I'm talking to people, and we're going to get to the bottom of this. But Zach LaVine, for his career, 20 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, 38% from three. And he's 83% from the line. This season, 24 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists, 51% from the field to his normal 46% from the field, and 44% from three. So he's up. He's down shooting free throws, 79%, but 44% from three. He balled out against the Kings, even though the Kings ended up getting the W. The biggest issue here that everybody's going to point out, so I'll just get right to it. This is what's crazy. And this is what you can decide for yourself whether or not it's an anomaly, right? So here we go. And it's been knee and foot and toe and a lot of different things with Zach LaVine. So at age 19, he plays 77 games. Age 20, that's his first year in the league. Age 20, he plays all 82, the only time in his career. After that, 47 games, 24 games, 63 games. That's when he was 23. He goes on a streak of 63 games, 60 games, 58 games, 67 games, 77 games. So that streak ain't bad. You're missing about 20-ish games, right? It's not great, but it's not terrible. He plays that 77 games, and those 2 seasons, 25, 26, and 2021, 2022, he was an all-star. In 2023, when he's 27, that's when he plays 77 games. And then this is the situation last season where he played 25 games. Here is where you can decide whether or not it's an anomaly. Zach LaVine this season, okay? Zach LaVine this season, 42 starts, 42 games played. He's played every game, or he's played maybe almost every game this season. Let's see what the Bulls are. He hasn't missed a ton. Let's see what the Bulls are right now. The Bulls are 21 and 29. Okay? So the Bulls are 21 and 29. So they've played 50 games. He's missed 8. Right? If my math is right. So he's missed 8 games this season. They played 50, he's played 8. I'll take that. That essentially means he'd be a little less than 20 if he misses 8 more, right? Or less than that, because they're already at 50. So you're looking at less than 20 games missed, depending on when the games are. I'll take that. We don't know if he's going to continue to play like this, number one, on the court, and number two, just health in general. But that's Zach LaVine for you. And we know he's electric. He's going to put it up, right? And he's getting paid $43 million this year, $45 million, more like $46 million, 45.6 or 45.9, so about $46 million next season. Then in 2026, 2027, he has a player option, which for $48.9 million, you got to think he's going to opt into. So you're going to be paying him $50 million when he's 31. That's what I think worries people, right? Then after that, he's a free agent when he's 32 years old. So you have him for the rest of this season, whatever happens now, next season, and then he opts in, assuming he opts in, which I think he will, to that $48.9 million, and there you go. And the biggest thing for me when I look at Zach LaVine is his fit with Malik Monk. That's what I think I'm maybe most worried about, besides his ability to stay on the floor. That's okay. So again, he goes 6'8", or his wingspan 6'8". He goes 6'5". All right. We all know him. He can get hot. He can get hotter than fish grease, like Mark Jones said. He's just got to stay on the floor. So when I look at the things that I'm worried about, and I'm essentially just doing the show for tomorrow, 10 a.m., 2 p.m. right now. I'm trying everything out. So you'll hear a lot of this tomorrow if there are any regulars in here. But basically, my worry meter when it comes to Zach LaVine situation, just away from what the Kings got back, would be his ability to stay off the floor, which I think does connect to the contract. So I'm not really worried about Zach LaVine when he plays. I think he's a pretty darn good player. But his ability to stay on the floor and his fit with Malik Monk. That's what worries me. Now he can stretch the floor, right? He's a better three-point shooter than De'Aaron. He's bigger than De'Aaron. Malik is now your number one point guard. You're giving the keys to Malik. How does that fit work? When Malik is cooking, when LaVine is cooking, DeMar, last shot conversations. But I think it could be worse on the court, if he stays healthy. And I know there's a couple caveats in there, but there are a lot of options. And yeah, people still saying we got finessed, we got this. Am I missing something? Can somebody let me know? Can somebody let me know what I'm missing? Why does no one care about the first round picks? Is it because you don't want to do is there something I'm missing with the actual first round picks, or is it because you just don't want to do a rebuild or head towards a rebuild? Because to get 3 first round picks, and second round picks, that's nothing to sneeze at, right? And look, I'm very open. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly I'm missing here. Look, De'Aaron Fox is a really good player. A lot of people are going to have a lot of questions. And look, we've only seen De'Aaron Fox as him supposed to be a number one, right? That's the biggest thing. And some people saying that the Charlotte pick is protected, things like that. Yeah, I figured there were some protections, and I'm still waiting. Shams never posted again, so I hopped on. So thank you guys for filling me in as we're just kind of breaking all of this down. And I'm trying to see here. Yeah, I don't think anybody else. San Antonio also only relinquished one of their own future first-round picks. Yeah, I think the biggest story here is what San Antonio didn't give up versus what they did give up. That's how I'm looking at this, right? Here we go. This is from Jake Fisher. Okay. A few teams are pointing this out to me, and I'm just sending this over to my producer. A few team folks are pointing this out to me. Charlotte's 2025 first-round pick that Sacramento is landing from San Antonio is top 14 protected, essentially guaranteed won't convey, and will instead become 2026 and 2027 Charlotte seconds. Kings really only got back 2 firsts. So you get back 2 based on that. And thank you, Jake Fisher. Based on that, you got back 2 firsts. You get a boatload of second-round picks, and you get Zach LaVine. I think this is a deal that could end up looking better. I don't know how worse it might be. It might look. And Carmichael Dave, what's Carmichael Dave? He just hopped in. Carmichael Dave. Minnesota in 2031 might be great, but who knows? Yeah, and that's a long ways away. That's a long ways away. So that's a good point. And I think that's the question that we've kind of been asking. Is this more so about the fact that you don't feel like the Kings are in a position to compete, and also you didn't get back the Mikal Bridges? There should be a list of deals that just aren't going to happen again. Right. And the Mikal, and I shouldn't say aren't going to happen again, because something can always happen. But the Mikal Bridges deal, right? That was insane. What was that? 5? The Rudy Gobert deal. I got to double check what the Donovan Mitchell deal was. But that's why I thought it was a tough situation for the Kings to make this move now, right after the Luka thing. Now, a lot of people are going to sit here and act like, and I even mentioned it as well. Well, because of the Luka thing, we didn't get it back as much value. This was probably in the this has I can actually tell you, not probably, this has been in the conversation for a while. This has been in conversation for a while. They were just trying to figure out what it was. Again, for those who are just now joining, I was told that the Kings were trying to get 2 win now pieces off top, right? So they weren't able to get that. So I guess, and I know people hate the word settle, but they settled for getting those first round picks and hoping that, hey, if it doesn't work out, with this group, at least we have some hitters in the future. And based on what, Jake Fisher and others are saying, the first rounders, that Charlotte first rounder is really 2 more second rounders or something like that. So yeah, that is the issue here. The 2031 Minnesota first, who knows where we're at in 2031? Anthony Edwards could be gone. The 2027 San Antonio first, I don't know about that one. I don't really know how I feel about the San Antonio first rounder, because you figure 2027, we're in 2025 now, right? So the 2027 is going to be Victor Wembanyama in getting closer to his prime. Okay, De'Aaron Fox at the top of his prime, or on the way out eventually, or leaving his prime, but still close to it. So I don't know what that San Antonio first is going to look like. So yeah, you start to kind of peel back some of these layers here. I think your best bet is trying to reflip it. And here's the other thing. You move on from Kevin Huerter, and this might be another reason a lot of people could see this as a loss. And I feel like this conversation has gone from being very positive to, the more I actually break this thing down, a little negative. Because the other thing that I'm pointing out is that some way, somehow, the Bulls got Kevin Huerter. Now that matters because of his contract. And even though he doesn't expire this season, he is going to expire next season. And, he would be a very movable contract, at 16 mil, whatever it is, going into next season. So a team would have brought in Kevin Huerter, let him rock for, a playoff run, whatever it is. Or if you're not doing anything, your season ends, next season it's expiring, and now everybody loves those expiring deals. So I think I don't really mind getting Zach LaVine back, and City Sissoko. I got to double check how to pronounce that. I looked that up. He's 6'6", out of France. Okay. He's been in he was with the G League Ignite. He's only 20. All right. We'll do a deep dive on City, but what the Kings got back is not really what the Kings got back from a player standpoint isn't really the issue. What the Kings got back from an asset perspective is more so the issue for me. And I don't know why you had to give up Kevin Huerter. Giving up Kevin Huerter, because I don't know how you go on to get, everyone's saying go get John Collins now. Well, John Collins is making $20+ million. So unless I'm missing something, you can't go get you needed Trey Lyles and Kevin Huerter. So you could have used, if you say, hey, we're just going to go all in with this group, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and one of these picks that you just got, right? We're going to flip that, okay, or use whatever first round pick, because you just acquired these. We're going to flip that, go get John Collins, and now we have our big wing that we were looking for. We have our playmaker, and we have Malik Monk, who we think can take another step. But moving on from Kevin Huerter is probably the biggest thing that in this situation is still tough for me. I'm just reading some of the comments here. Dave is saying the whole thing is going to break down. Dave, I can never tell if you're being sarcastic or not, but Dave said, because now you're going to trade DeMar DeRozan. Allen with an A says no Huerter plus 6 picks, still time for more movement. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. As far as moving on with this group, and maybe you are moving on from DeMar DeRozan. As far as this group is concerned, losing that Kevin Huerter contract, it might dang near. I'm not going to be disrespectful to De'Aaron, but it does. It hurts you a lot. It kind of helps you a lot, or hurts you a lot, I should say. I'm just reading some of these comments here. We have roster spots and extra money and picks. You still have to make it depend. We have to look at how much money that the Kings have now. That's the main thing. Can they just go get John Collins without dipping into the luxury tax because they've moved off of De'Aaron? No. And here's the one thing, and to that point from the texter or to the chatter, what did I say earlier? Zach LaVine is making $43 million. $43 million. Okay. I'm confirming De'Aaron Fox's contract right now. LaVine is making 43 and is about to go up. And you have De'Aaron Fox, just gonna load up here. De'Aaron Fox, I don't believe he ain't making 43. He's not making 43. So that is here we go. He's making 34 right now. Okay. He's making 34. So yeah, and it's from Bobby Marks, the great Bobby Marks. De'Aaron's making 34, and then next season he makes 37. Zach LaVine's making 43. So I guess you have that money from moving on from Kevin Huerter, but at the same time, in a trade situation, you still have to make the money match. That's why the John Collins thing, unless I'm missing something, is probably cooked. And what Dave is saying, do you move DeMar DeRozan? Do you move DeMar DeRozan to try to get younger? Do you move DeMar DeRozan to continue this new look team? The other part of this is you don't necessarily know what happens with this season. The Kings have a game tomorrow, right? The Kings have a game tomorrow against the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves we thought were going to make a move. So the Timberwolves, they're sitting here and they're kind of being gifted. I mean, these last couple teams have been gifted a wounded duck in the Sacramento Kings. And tomorrow, I mean, I would not have your hopes up. I mean, maybe they rally around it, and I would assume there's no way Zach LaVine is going to be playing tomorrow. Maybe they rally around it and you go from there. But I think the season really, I think you just cook these next two games. You get through the trade deadline, and after that, you see if you can make a run. Now, the hope is you're not as dead in the water and you're not back essentially where you were in the Mike Brown era before that happens. That's the whole situation here. I'm looking from Jordan, absolute joke of a trade. 2025 pick worthless, 2027 pick mid-20s. Yeah, because that's what we were saying about the Spurs. 2023 makes no sense if we want to win now. The picks don't look good when you peel back the curtains. You know, it's almost like the Kings tried to make a deal that just sounded good, right? From the asset perspective. As I keep saying, I'm not as low on Zach LaVine as others. It's just the reality is you can't make the club in the tub. The best ability is availability. I'm not that low on Zach LaVine. Okay. And City Sissoko, we got to see more on him. He's 6'6". I mean, I guess that's at least you got somebody who's not 6'2", 6'3", like everybody else that the Kings draft. So that isn't the issue for me. It's when you start to, and I appreciate everybody, we're literally just kind of breaking down these deals as peeling back the layers of this deal as we do the stream. But my initial thought was, hey, 3 firsts. And I think that's kind of what the Kings wanted. They wanted fans to see 3, or really the NBA world, to see Luka went for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, who isn't terrible, but Max Christie, and he actually might be pretty good. Max Christie and a first, right? We moved off De'Aaron. We got Zach LaVine, who's having Zach LaVine, is he having a career year? Probably close to a career year. And we got 3 firsts and a bunch of seconds. right? But when you peel back the layers on the first, they were, I guess, you would call low value first. That's the issue, low value first. And you don't get any type of proven talent like the Stephon Castles of the world. And I wouldn't even call Stephon Castle proven, but not even a Devin Vassell, or not even a Keldon Johnson or anything like that. Somebody that can play in the league. I think that's the other thing. You can find, because once I started looking up stuff on Devin Vassell, I started thinking, I mean, if you get Zach LaVine, let me ask you this question to all the Kings fans out there, okay? Let's take away 2 of the first, since we know that they're low value. Let's take away 2 of those first. And thank you, Mixed Doc on TikTok. Appreciate you, man. I'm sorry you're a Salty Warriors fan. I'm sorry, but I appreciate you. Let's do this. If the Kings got Zach LaVine and Devin Vassell and one pick, let's call it the 2031 pick. Zach LaVine, Devin Vassell, the 2031 pick, and everything else was the same, would you feel better? Because my answer is probably yes. Now that you break down what the picks actually are. I'm just looking up some stuff. Yeah, Devin Vassell is 24. 6'5", small forward, shooting guard. Now, is it a little redundant-esque bringing in Zach LaVine? Sure, but I mean, again, these aren't a bunch of point guards like the Kings have been drafting. You can take a couple 6'5". They already got, I mean, the Colby Joneses of the world and the Mason Joneses of the world. At least Devin Vassell gives you 6'5". He's 24 years old, and he's been playing in the league. So, and Keldon, I'm just looking at some of these Spurs guys. Keldon Johnson, again, they just have 8,000. They have 8,000 6'5" power forward, small forward shooting guards, and the Kings couldn't get one. The Kings couldn't get one. And when you break down the value of these picks, I think that's the biggest issue. When Shams initially breaks it down and you see 3 first-round picks, then you start saying, oh, well, and we just talked about from Jake Fisher, 2025 is probably not going to convey. So the 2025 is the 2025 is top 14 protected. So it won't convey and will instead become 2026 and 2027 Charlotte's seconds. So when you start breaking down what is actually happening and what the Kings actually got back, then you start thinking, well, if that were the case, then I would prefer to give me Devin Vassell, give me Keldon Johnson, somebody that I know, instead of Charlotte 2020, Charlotte second round picks. So I think that this is a very much I'm dubbing this an Instagram deal for the Sacramento Kings. An Instagram deal for the Sacramento Kings. Those couples that post on Instagram all the time and they want everybody to think that everything is perfect in those pictures when it's not, that's exactly what we're seeing from the Kings. It's an Instagram deal. You're smiling, you're happy. Look how good we look. We're in our Sunday best, okay? We're all done up. But you actually look at the relationship and they argue all the time. You look at this deal, Shams gets to put out, the Kings got 3 firsts, and Luka just went for 1, and Anthony Davis and Max Christie. The Kings got 3 firsts. And they got Zach LaVine, who is playing near a career level. Let's look at Zach LaVine's points. Near career level. He averaged 27 that All-Star season. He averaged 25 one season. But the Kings get Zach LaVine, 3 firsts, and a bunch of second-round picks. Then you start to break down, well, 2027, Spurs are going to be pretty good. Well, 2025, that one is protected. Top 14, protected. So, and I'm looking at Bobby Marks now, and what he's saying, here are the first-round picks that San Antonio has remaining. They own 6 of their next 7, 2 unprotected from Atlanta, swap rights with Atlanta, swap rights with Boston, and swap rights with Dallas and Minnesota. And they have swap rights with the 2031. So even the 2031 pick. So Oh, excuse me. The 20, what? I'm getting that confused with the Minnesota pick that the Kings got. So this is, I wouldn't call it a disaster. I would not call it a disaster at all. But a lot of people are saying the Kings basically got a bunch of second round picks. And that is really what this is breaking down. That's what this is breaking down right now. It looks like the Kings got a bunch of low value first round picks. And one of them probably probably being top 14 protected, they probably won't even get. So, and for those wondering why, this is from Jake Fisher. Charlotte's 2025 first round pick that Sacramento is landing from San Antonio is top 14 protected, essentially guaranteed won't convey. And will instead become 2026, 2027 seconds because Charlotte stinks. Right? So that's what it is. That's what it is. I see you all on TikTok. Appreciate you. Chime on in. You got something to say about this whole situation. I first saw it, and if you've been rocking with me this whole time, when I got on the stream, I wasn't completely, heartbroken, but now kind of breaking all this down, it's pretty rough. Lincoln on TikTok, when did Hornets not have their first round pick? Yeah, going back to what the Jake Fisher report was, so Hornets had traded it to the Spurs in 2025, and then the Spurs sent that over to the Kings, but it's 2025. It's protected top 14, and the Hornets stink. So that's not going to convey, or it could, but it's most likely not going to convey. So it'll become 2026 and 2027 Charlotte's second round picks. That's what's happening there. Just rough stuff. And again, I'm calling this an Instagram deal for the Sacramento Kings because it sounds good, but in reality, there are a lot of moves that just does not make sense, right? I just wish they would have stayed. I just wish they would have stayed true and just said, I need a young talent that I know can play now. I need Devin Vassell. I don't want that Charlotte pick. I need Devin Vassell. I need Keldon Johnson. I need somebody. Give us the 2 picks, or give us 1 pick and give us a body that we know can play. Give us a body that we know can play. That's it. That's it. That's what I would have said. Kyle on the YouTube chat, is Zach playing tomorrow? I doubt it. How these things kind of work. First time we might see him is maybe on Wednesday when the Kings are at home. That would make a little bit of sense. Kings actually have a back-to-back Wednesday, then they fly to Portland on Thursday. I just want to double check here the Western Conference standings. So the Western Conference standings right now, I know a couple teams are playing tonight. Western Conference standings, the Kings are tied with the Warriors, but they do have the tiebreaker. Somehow they're holding on to the 10 seed, but they have the same amount of losses as the Mavericks. They're 1 game back of the Suns, 2 games back of the Timberwolves. They're only 3 games back of the Clippers in the 6th seed. Clippers have been playing really well of late. The Clippers, let's see here. Clippers are, they're only 6-4 their last 10, but they had went on a little hot streak. I don't think that anybody's cashing the Lakers. And the Lakers just got Luka. They are revitalized. Their fans are just loving life right now. I don't think the Lakers are giving up. If anything, they might catch the Nuggets, because I don't know if the Nuggets are doing anything. The Lakers might catch the Nuggets. So that 5 seed is not looking good. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then you could count San Antonio. Why not? There's 6, 7 teams fighting for that 6th seed. I would say realistically, for all you Kings fans out there, at this point in time, I would say that the goal should be hopefully a win in your in playing game. 7-8 is more realistic to me at this point than looking at 6 seed. And maybe I'm just being a little bit down in the dumps, but look, that's the thing. I think here's the weirdest situation, right? In these moves, and this is why I think Kings fans are a little bit upset. Because in these moves, you either feel like you can still compete in the present, or you feel like you can compete in the future. What this move did for the Sacramento Kings didn't really help either thing. You still don't really feel like you can compete in the present because your bench is still terrible. And as bad as Kevin Huerter has been, I mean, at least he was a body, right? So as bad as Kevin Huerter has been, you lose Kevin Huerter. You add Zach LaVine, who you got to deal with that fit now, okay? And you look at the future picks, and then all those future picks are mid at best, as the kids say. Low value first-round picks. Some of them won't even be first-round picks. So at first glance, oh, well, this looks good, blah, 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 blah. No. So it's a rough go for the Sacramento Kings, and I don't really understand what exactly the next move is going to be simply from a money standpoint. We have to double check everything now and get and fire back up the trade generators, but I don't really see how moving how you move Kevin Huerter and only get one player back. I think that's the craziest thing. Probably your most tradable contract you moved, and you only got one player back. Oh, technically you got two. Let's look up. I got it for you right here. Okay. CD Sissoko. All right. 17 games played. He's 20 years old. 1.3 points per game. 0.6 rebounds per game. 0.4 assists per game. He's shooting 42% from three. He goes, this is saying 6'8". I saw 6'6". I'll say 6'8" to make us all feel better. 50% from the field. Come on. 12 games played. Let's see here. No, 17 games played. And like I said, yeah. 0 blocks. He's right now shooting 16% from free throw. I'm assuming he's taken about 1 or 2, or it had to be more than that to get to 16. So that's the other guy. That's the other guy that we're dealing with. I'm just taking some. Here we go. All right. Oops, I think I hit something. I think I hit something on the old. I'm just going to end TikTok. Sorry, y'all. I don't know how to do this. It's my first time. Thank you, though. So as we continue to break this thing down, it's been pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy. And I think the biggest thing here is what happens with the Kings. What do they do next? And where do they go from here? That's what it is. And I don't know. All right, I'm going to get out of here. My phone is blowing up and it's about to die. So I will be on 10 a.m., 2 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining Alan Styles, the Alan Styles Show. Like I said, you can catch us 10 a.m., 2 p.m. right here on YouTube. Also 11:40 a.m. in your car. Sacktown Sports app as well. So a couple different ways to get it. We will talk soon. Tomorrow is going to be quite the day. All right. We'll see you soon. All right. Peace.